So today I wanted to do a deep dive with a buddy of mine, Sean Gaines, with Zoom. And I've known Sean for quite some time, and he's kind of my go-to guy internally with Zoom because he knows everything about Zoom Phone, Zoom Rooms, Zoom security. So a lot of times when I'm bouncing things off of people, I normally bounce them off Sean. So let me give Sean a proper introduction. He's a Zoom architect for Zoom Phone on the education team. So, Sean, tell me what you've been doing now or working at home with COVID-19.
So the biggest things that Zoom and myself have been working on in the education industry are really helping teachers and students, the people, the learners, as we call them, moving into this new digital world, the new paradigm that we have today. And it's been forced upon us by the situation right now with COVID, and a lot of universities, and actually every university and every K through 12 department has had to take a real hard look at how learning is done and have a new tool in their tool belt to move on to using distance learning, distance teaching, and moving to synchronous or asynchronous learning, where you can do both at the same time and have lesson plans specifically for distance teaching. But one of the biggest things I've seen is just teachers having to deal with not being physically in front of their students and learning how to augment the lessons plans to move into a digital sphere and integrate that with the learning management systems that they're used to using.
So, as far as obstacles, what have you seen been the biggest obstacles for teachers making the transition to online education?
So the biggest obstacles would be that same transition, and what at Zoom we've been helping them try to do is help to make that transition as easy as possible to an online learning place where you're not physically in front of your students anymore, but you want to keep that connection going. And so having to find different ways to engage in different means of engagements. And usually it's about creating a new kind of curriculum and having that curriculum that you've been using over the years be augmented to work in a digital format. And lots of schools have been doing this very well. It's been a process, but it's been speeding up as time goes on because people are learning that you have a new tool in your tool belt now to do that, to teach, and you can reach a lot more students, and it opens up avenues to different ways of teaching and reaching people that we haven't been able to reach before, making new programs. And these things will all still be in place when we go back to life as we knew it, but it's never going to fully go back because the paradigm has shifted and we now have distance learning and distance teaching at the forefront. And if anything were to happen again, or if there's a need, we now have that tool to where we have started to make a curriculum. We've started to educate both the teachers and students about the best ways to use learning over video, pre-recording sessions, you can even do that, and having that interactive ability that's still available in an online class. It's just in a little bit of different format.
Yeah, so what's interesting is that I've posted a lot on LinkedIn about different use cases of Zoom. And so you're in the educational arena and you see these every day. Can you highlight some unique Zoom education use cases that you've seen?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So with this paradigm shift, and so well, let's go back a few years. So video conferencing and distance learning have been around. It's just been brought to the forefront today. And today, teachers are getting more used to this. It's being built into the curriculums like we've talked about. And the longer that teachers are in this position, they'll become better and better at doing distance learning, distance teaching, and that interactive ability. And On a personal note, one of the things that I do is I volunteer at schools and I help use the technology of video conferencing and distance learning to help teach students. And if I go on a trip to visit a customer or somebody and it's in an interesting place, I'll video conference with that class using Zoom, and we'll talk about where I am, and I'll show them if I'm in Hawaii, we'll show them the palm trees and the ocean, and then when I get back, we'll go and visit them in person, and we'll talk about where I was. So they see me over video, and then they see me in the classroom. But a good example of just pure distance teaching is what they do in Alaska, which is they do amazing things. They literally have special kits set up with 4G transmitters and special cameras for the elements, and even special devices where they can push a Zoom camera into the den of a hibernating animal.
Wow.
And not mess it up, not try to, intervene or anything, but just being able to be out there and where you'd think you wouldn't be able to video conference, but you are able to do that with our technology today and bring that to students live to where they would never be able to see that before. So those are some of the most interesting things I've seen and the coolest use cases.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Alaskan example, but I think it's interesting to be able to have kind of a Zoom room and a kit and be able to travel out and teach from that perspective, which is very unique. So obviously, I see a ton of phones behind you. Obviously, when we did our Zoom proof of concept at the university, I always called you and asked you questions of how do we set these up and different features of Zoom Phone. And I know you're kind of a resident expert in my mind of Zoom Phone. So from your perspective, why should customers consider switching over to a cloud-based phone solution like Zoom Phone?
Yeah, that's a good question. And in the past, I've worked in many different areas in telephony and installed every system from analog punch down and transmitted that and moved it over to a SIP-based system and worked in data centers. And the reason people are moving to a cloud-based phone system is one, because of what's happened today. It's brought things to the forefront to where we know that sometimes we may not be able to get to our physical locations, to get to the physical servers and etc. And with Zoom particularly, we have a worldwide network of video that just works, and we have a long history of that. And just by adding phone, the ability to make real phone calls and be a real phone carrier, adding that to our platform makes it a true unified communications platform. And the best part about that is that you don't have to have any hard iron inside your data centers anymore. Those expensive service contracts and the paying for the data, the power, the space in those racks in the data centers or on your site itself, that takes all of that off of you and puts the onus for uptime on Zoom, the provider. And that takes a lot off of the administrative plate. It's really the true unified communications and having one platform that does all of that. We have voice and video, webinars, meetings, and all that stuff. But adding that one piece of Zoom Phone, being able to make real phone calls, made Zoom a true unified communications platform. That's why I specifically joined Zoom, was to help with that. And I feel that what we're doing is we are basically creating the same thing with voice that we have done with video in the past. And our goal is to make those come together as seamlessly as possible so that you can be wherever you need to be, and you can use your cell phone and have Zoom Phone on it and not miss a call from your organization. And it also gives you that ability to have the separation of your personal phone number and your work phone number. And you can have that now wherever you go. And that's the power of having a cloud solution, is that we are high availability and all around the world. And so wherever you're at, you can have that phone, that video experience the same way.
Yeah, I really like it. You know, when I was testing our proof of concept, I remember I put a post on LinkedIn and I said, Zoom phone is the most easiest voice over IP phone solution that I've ever implemented. It was really seamless. And I've tested different models of phones, but I'm always interested in your perspective. So you've been testing desk phones for quite some time. What would you consider your top three desk phones and why?
Oh, okay. So that's a tough question, and that brings me back to what we talked about before, and what you mentioned about the ease of deployment of Zoom Phone. And it's really simple. We work with two major partners, and that's Polycom and Yealink. Those are the two top phones in the market today. Polycom will give you the best quality of sound, and the best feel of the phone for an enterprise with the best return on investment, because they've been the industry leader in voice for as long as I've been doing voice. And that iconic Polycom desk phone, that they call it a starfish phone or whatever you want to call that, that iconic shape was used by Cisco and Avaya, and Polycom made all the internal parts. They just OEM'd it out. And so that same tradition has stayed true. And I'm always testing, and they're sending me their latest phones to test and make sure they work with Zoom. But having that ability to work directly with Polycom, and then second, I'd have to say would be Yealink, would be the second best, because they do try and make a great product. It's a really good product that works with Zoom, but from ease of use and deployment, you can literally buy a brand new Polycom phone, and with Zoom's hardware as a service initiative, if you buy it through us, we don't sell phones or anything directly, but if you buy it through Zoom, it'll automatically be added to your account, so that when you get the physical box and phone, you can just literally plug and play, and it'll pull down all the information from that user for you.
Wow.
And since we've been implementing this new hot desking service, we now have the ability to just give the administrators, if they have a new user to onboard, you connect the phone to the user in our web interface. You just assign that phone to the user, and they'll get an email saying, hey, you've got a phone coming, and this is your PIN code to sign into that phone. And so it takes all the administrative overhead out, and it helps users have that easy transition, so that wherever they're at, if they're on a soft phone or the hard phone, and if they move office to office, you still have that same seamless connectivity. So Polycom has been a great partner in that, and moving forward, we have very cool things coming. Yealink has also been a great partner who's been really wanting to work with us more. So as we go forward, we make sure we have feature compatibility and feature congruence within our platform, from the soft phone to the hard phone. Yeah, I hope that answers the question there, and I wasn't too one-sided, but
Yeah, no
go with
problem.
Polygon
So
phone.
one thing that I'm always interested is Zoom is so agile in their development. For example, I've requested different features and then literally a month later seen those features in the actual deployment of phone or in the meeting platform. So from a new features perspective, what are some Zoom phone features that you can share that are coming out soon?
So I'm really excited about this next release, because we've been in our 90 days of just releasing security related features. And that's specifically because of our university, K through 12, and just learning distance teaching customers of all kinds. And that security also rolls up to the enterprise, but what I focus on is education specifically. So that's at my heart. And that's one of the reasons I joined Zoom, is because we focus on bringing happiness, and that's what I try to do every day. And with these features, we focus on what the customer wants. We don't bring over, or we didn't buy a BroadSoft. We built our own phone system from scratch. And what that does is that gives us the ability to listen to the customers and know what they want and not have 50,000 features they don't need, but we focus on the features that are needed. And so, like I talked about, we have hot desking or hardware as a service coming forward that'll allow customers to literally just have a Zoom phone purchased hardware or software through our website and have it attached to your account. So when you get the phone, you can just send that email out and attach it, and the end user who receives it can plug it in and play. And really, some of the great features are directory. We've always wanted to have a single directory, and whether you want to call a Zoom room or call into a Zoom meeting, we've now added direct directory integration with your single sign-on, your Active Directory, whatever you use for your directory integration with Zoom. That now trickles down to Zoom Phone. And along with hot desking, the ability to go to other desk phones, we've started connecting the client and the hard phones together so that if I press do not disturb on the hard phone, it'll follow through to my soft client. And we have that ability now to where we can switch between the two. And the end goal is to make it to where those are seamless environments so that if I want to, I can choose to pick up my call on a hard phone. And if I'm on my cell phone coming into work and I go into a Zoom room, I can transfer that call directly to the Zoom room.
I like that.
So we're trying to make it very mobile, agile. And then the last thing I'll bring up is the ability to do monitoring and whispering in barge. And that means you can have a real call queue in a call center, and you can have a group of employees and the manager for that call queue. If you want to do, let's talk about an IT help desk or a registrar's desk. You would have the manager be able to listen in on active phone calls and grade the experience that the employee is giving to the customer. And then if they're coaching, you can then whisper into that call to where only the employee can hear you, and you can give advice through that. And that gives you a great ability to give you the call center features that you need, but only the ones you need, because we're not trying to be everything to everyone. We want to have the features that are just necessary for Zoom, and then move that with our plan forward to merge those two environments of voice and video and just make it seamless so that you can make any call on any device and answer any way that you need to.
So one thing that I experienced, and I assisted my local family doctor, he moved to Zoom Phone right before COVID-19 and actually moved to telemedicine using Zoom Phone. And he really bragged about how easy it was to use. And he even had them dispersed where it was almost like the office was at home and people would call in and they would go, and they were using a mixture of desk phone and soft line and so on. But a lot of questions that I get have to do with, I have these existing numbers with my business. I want to keep those numbers. So tell me a little bit about the number porting process from, whatever phone solution you're on now. You get everything set up and then you port those numbers over to Zoom. Tell me about that process.
Oh, okay. That's a great question. And with the number of customers who are coming to Zoom now for moving into that distance learning, we've become very adept at doing that. And so when you start off with Zoom, we always offer a proof of concept, and we give you free numbers to play with and use. So you can own and operate Zoom before you want to make the decision to move over to it. But once you do, if you have a university size or a campus size deployment, we have a white glove service, that a team dedicated to that will work with you on porting the numbers that you have from your old provider over to Zoom. Because we can provide numbers. We can actually sell vanity numbers, 800 numbers if you want as well, and we can provide numbers because we're a true back-end carrier, and that applies for most parts of the world because we do have different carriers we work with in other parts of the world to facilitate that. But um, large entities, the number porting is white gloved and just done because we want to make sure everything goes smoothly. So we take care of that for you. But if you had a new number, you say you wanted to port over yourself, we've made it really easy in our web interface. And so Zoom Phone is controlled from one single pane of glass, a web interface that the administrator can get to, and they can disseminate different tasks. So you can say, this person right here just has the authority to manage Zoom Phone, and we can granularly define those different properties. And this person could just manage IM and things like that. But when reporting, you can assign someone to manage Zoom Phone and the number portion so that if you get a new phone number, you literally just enter it into our database on the website. It'll check, it'll give you a green light if it can be ported, and then it will create a letter of authorization for you. You just need to fill out showing that you're the owner, send it in, and it does it automatically in the background. And then within 5 to 20 days, depending on how long number porting is taking. And it has gone up since COVID because lots of people are moving to Zoom and using number porting to do that, to move their company numbers from the proof of concept and into their production environment. So it's a seamless transition. But yeah, you can do that by yourself. We made that really easy, or we really like to help people out with that process because that's the long pole in the tent, if you will, to set up Zoom. Is you can literally set up Zoom in a number of hours, but having the number porting done and working with the back-end carriers, we have to follow their processes. So that does take a little bit longer, 5 to 15, 20 days at the most.
Yeah, I know when we did it for the doctor's office, we expected longer, but it actually for us it only took 48 hours. So I was
Wow,
impressed with
great.
that. So something I picked up on that you brought up earlier is you mentioned Zoom Phone, and then in the same sentence you said Zoom Room. So how is Zoom Phone connected to Zoom Room from an integration perspective?
No, that's a great question. That's something new that we've brought in, is that we see customers consolidating now, and that what they do is they try to move off of hard phones and move towards the desktop, and that's what Zoom is focused on. We're a video first company. It's what we were built on, and we added Zoom Phone to complete that unified communications experience. And what that means is that it's in our DNA now, so that a Zoom room can be assigned a Zoom phone number. So we can take out the phone in that room if you need to, and throw in an iPad or something cheaper than a phone and put that in there and have that be a room for video conferencing. But it also has a phone number. So if I want to just walk in and make a phone call, it's as simple as assigning a phone number to a user. You can assign it to a Zoom room with your own calling plan, whatever you want. And you can decide if that's a common area use case. You can turn off international calling. That we make it really easy to set up phones and granularly select what they can and can't do. So every Zoom room can have a Zoom phone number and become a Zoom phone. So you can consolidate and you can make things easier for users.
So in a sense, can you start out by a Zoom phone call and then in a sense elevate it into like a meeting in the same room?
Yeah, you can do that in the Zoom room and on the desktop. So what we've done is we have an escalate to video button. So if I were talking to you over Zoom phone and we were both on our clients, and even if you weren't on your video client, you're just talking to me on your cell phone, I can elevate that meeting to a video meeting on my side. And if you're just on the phone, you'll still be in that same meeting over the phone. But if your device has the capability of upgrading to video, If you're using a Zoom client, a Zoom room, and soon we'll have this on phones, which is really exciting, and your cell phone, you can just join that meeting over video. And since we use the same internal audio codec, which is the Opus audio codec, which I love because it's always having new features built into it, but it's also standardized in the industry, and it uses it's just a great codec to use, and we use that throughout our platform. So I'm talking to you on that now. And so if we were to have a phone call, we're using that same codec, so we can seamlessly move that. And that's one of those pieces where we are moving towards making it a seamless integration to where you don't have to worry about what kind of call it is. Yeah, so that's some of the really cool stuff we're doing. And also inside of Zoom rooms, you have the ability to really create that mobile experience that you were talking about. Whereas before you have these big, large video codecs that you have to have, and they're a piece unto themselves with large cameras. But that's how we're able to do things from Alaska and do things from all these places around the world, is we can make a Zoom room out of basically anything, a Nook and a webcam,
Yes.
and you can make it as small and backpack carryable. And so that's you can also add Zoom phone to it now and make it an all-in-one experience.
That's amazing. So I want to switch gears for a moment. We, at the university, we use digital signage very heavily, and we have used it prior to Zoom coming into our lives. We were using other products, but what I found is the other products is the software used to push the data. It was complicated and it didn't work right. And I'd have to redo the flashcards and all this thing. And then one day my account exec told me, he said, Jason, you know, Zoom digital signage is part of Zoom. So if you have a Zoom room license, you don't have to pay anything else. And I mean, it kind of blew my mind. So that next day I started upgrading everything to Zoom digital signage. From a Zoom digital signage perspective, are there new features that you would like to share on that as well?
Yes, and that's part of our 90 days of security. And it's one of the things I'm really excited about, is that we're able to offer the most robust emergency 911 and enhanced 911 system in the field today, where you don't have to have an external provider like Single Wire or Red Sky or IntelliQuint involved at all. It's all free from Zoom, built into your Zoom contract. So if you use Zoom phone, you have this ability. And what we've done is we've connected that. So if someone makes a phone call in your environment to 911, you can create a team that's alerted through the soft client with a pop-up, and the bat phone will ring inside the security room. The call also goes natively to 911 for the local public safety answering point. So we'll have you put in some addresses into Zoom, and you can even connect those to the IP network in your office, so that if people are mobile, we know where that call is coming from via IP address or BSS ID on your wireless access points. And like I said, all that's inherent with Zoom, but the next step is adding digital signage to that. And so what we've done is, with that free digital signage you mentioned that can be deployed throughout campus, we made it to where when an alert comes in, you can send out that alert to a specific set of digital signage and say, tornado, this is the ingress, this is where you need to go in and shelter. If it's a fire, we show the exits. You can put up the egress messages, and you can make those specific either videos or those specific images as you want, and customize them for certain things. But the other part is wayfinding. So if someone dials 911 and an emergency response team 911 needs to go to that building and find them, we can tie that in as well, and it'll show the floor and the room that that person is called 911 from, and then the wayfinding, so that the emergency response team can get there. And so this is something that we're actually will be showing remotely now, since Enterprise Connect is going to be remote this year and everything is, but that's what we do. We're able to show things over video. So it's really exciting to be able to offer that to our customers in education, because I know and we know that student safety and safety of our learners and our employees comes first.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm always interested in these different personal assistant applications like Alexa and Google Assistant and Apple Siri. You know, I use the Philips Hue and I love to be able to voice and do interactions with that. Have you seen Zoom looking at integrating any of these type of personal assistant applications into Zoom?
Yeah, that's a very astute question. So that's where people are moving towards nowadays. That's what we call in the industry natural language processing, NLP. And there are various different entities that excel at that. One of them would be Amazon. There's Google. There's even Microsoft and IBM have their own natural language processing, but some of those like Google and like the Alexa that you mentioned have business accounts that you can get, or pro accounts that allow you to go in and actually put in commands that can talk to external devices, and you can set up your own routines is what they call them. And so with our open API, you can go to marketplace.zoom.us and you can learn what you can do and what you can call to make a Zoom room call happen from an API perspective.
Wow.
And we have over thousands and thousands of applications made by our customers. And we actually have contests to pick the best one, and we give them funding to help them because they've made the best product that makes the best impact to help people use Zoom. But with Alexa and Google, you can sign up for that business service, and you have the ability to set up those calls so that if you walk into a room, you can say blank. I don't want to set off everybody's device, so I'm going to not say it. So we can say blank, please start my video conference or my video call. You can have whatever nomenclature you want in there and syntax. And you would put the API inside of there to say this calls to the Zoom room and it starts this call on the calendar. Um, this is something that we're working on today. It's not general availability by any means yet, but it's something that we are testing with different customers and that lots of people are very heavily involved and interested in. So what we're doing is we're working with that and finding the best and safest way of integrating that into an environment. So today, that is something that we can do. It's something that we're also heavily investing in going forward because it's all about ease of use. And nowadays, it's also about not having to touch as many things as possible, which is why we have headsets. So yeah, we do have that, and it's an exciting thing to learn about and see in action. And luckily, I've been able to work with that and see that in action at customers and have it actually work and be easy to use. So it's just a matter of moving that forward and productizing that and making it integrated purely into Zoom because our focus is on making things simple, easy to use, and bringing happiness. So we're not going to release something that's not going to do that yet.
Well, you know, during COVID-19, I've done a lot of testing of products. You know, I have vendors send me different cameras, different microphones, Zoom rooms, touch units, and I've been doing product reviews for quite some time. But I'm interested in your perspective, especially on cameras. So you hear cameras nowadays have these two features, auto framing and voice tracking. So what are some of the cameras that you've tested and that you prefer that have these auto framing voice tracking features?
So that's been a big surprise to me. Over the past years, I've worked for a number of companies who have worked with that technology, Polycom and Cisco, but now we're moving into an era where we can make that technology smaller more cost effective. And the Germans have a great word called preiswert, which is price worthy. We don't really have that in English, but I love to use the word price worthy because it's really what everybody is looking for. Something that does what you want it to do. It gives you the right ROI and it's at the right price. So I've been really, really surprised by Aver's ability to have a great quality image and to do their voice tracking. So at Polycom, they have the Eagle Eye Director. At Cisco, they have different names for the speaker tracker, but we'll just call it the speaker tracker now. And that's usually a heavy, expensive system that's proprietary. It only works with those devices. But with Zoom, we can use just a regular Nook PC or a Mac Mini of any type and connect any number of cameras to that to create a full Zoom room experience. Unlike those other products where you're stuck using a certain number of cameras in a certain brand and type. But for a real Zoom room experience, you can mix and match. And so in my office, I have a bunch of different cameras. Right now, I'm using an Aver speaker tracker. And I found that's the best one that I like today that works the fastest. And then tertiarily, they also have what we used to call in education the Elmo devices or the yeah, exactly. And so for document sharing and showing that, I use that all the time for demonstrations. And in a Zoom room, you can actively switch back and forth between cameras very quickly. So I've really been enjoying their products. And then Logitech would be the next one that I talk about. Logitech Brio cameras for just the desktop experience have been amazing. They have great the ability to work with Zoom's features where we have touch up. So we have the ability to touch up any anything that you might want to have touched up. We can click that button. We also do high definition now. So if we're on a point-to-point meeting, that's going to be a high definition meeting. And if you're on a big screen, you want to have the best quality video possible. So the Logitech Brio and then the Aver series of cameras have just been impressing me so much lately. I've been working and reaching out to those vendors because I need to make demonstration videos. And so I've been looking for the best way to do that, and they've been helpful, and it gives the best quality I've seen. So, and it works with every Zoom room.
Yeah, I've tested the Aver, I've tested Poly's and Logitech's, and I agree. Those would be my top three as well. They're excellent. So let's switch gears for a minute. So in the news, we saw COVID-19 hit. We saw everyone switching to Zoom. There was this mass adoption, went from 10 million to 300 million customers in no time. And then in the news, you started seeing all these security issues, right? So Zoom security has been in the news pretty heavily. What is your perspective of Zoom security? And I'm going to ask you kind of a blunt question. Is Zoom safe?
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking that. And Zoom is safe. And so I'm heavily into security myself. I am taking my it's expired, but so I'm taking my new certified ethical hacking exam, and I've gone through Security Plus training and security forensics hacking investigation training. And we have the best security team at Zoom. And when we had everybody start using Zoom, what we had done first is we had made it just easy to use so that you could make a meeting and someone could join that without any impedance. But in the background, we always had settings for setting a PIN code on the meeting, setting a waiting room, all those security features that you'd think we have. We've had that for a very long time. It just wasn't turned on by default. And thus, if you're a large object in the news and everybody's looking at you, people are going to find ways to try and break it or mess with it. And so Zoom bombing occurred. But what we did is to every education agency, we made it a mandatory that they put in a passcode and they put in a waiting room or some form of security on top of that meeting. And so we actively pushed that out to our education customers first when we first started hearing of this happening. So that's just pure settings from our side and us making it easy to work with from the beginning. But now we know with this mass adoption and so much use that we need to enforce those security standards up front. And then if our customers want to disable them, they have the ability to disable them. And the next thing I know you're probably going to ask is about end-to-end encryption. And what we have done is
right now, or what's going on?
So we have that available today. If you've got Zoom Client 5.0 or above, you're ready to start using it with other people who have Zoom Client 5.0 or above. And we implemented that using AES-256 GCM encryption, which means that it is literally end-to-end encrypted now. And we're making sure that all of our customers know to upgrade. If you haven't upgraded, make sure you go to your Zoom client, click on your avatar, and check for a client update. Any administrators, use your SCCM or push it out through your packages to update your clients, because we've added so many new security features inside of our platform. It would take me a while to go through them all, but from chat to encryption on the hard phones that we support today, we've upgraded those to using many different security ciphers up to above and beyond what is necessary. But we have our baseline of supporting TLS 1.2, 256 encryption, and that's data in motion and data at rest. So we've made a large effort to do that. We specifically took 90 days and only released security related updates, and that's just coming to an end now. And you'll see the last version of that push out in the next 2 weeks. Like I said, with those features we were able to put under that auspice for signing in and signing out of phones, adding new encryption levels, and making it easier to deploy phones. Those are all security measures as well, because it gives your users a PIN code to sign into their phone. We've added the ability to actually granularly go down and define whether a user is able to make recordings, not make recordings, and all those different options that you'd expect to be able to turn on or off. We've gone through and made sure we've addressed all of those issues. So I'm confident in saying it's a secure platform now, and all of my customers have asked me the same question, and I'm happy to say that we've hired the best security team and we've made the best effort going forward to do that, and we'll continue to do so.
Absolutely. So let's leave the audience with something that I always like to ask on, any webinar that I do or any talk that I talk about. I always talk about best practices. So looking at the whole platform, right? So Zoom Phone, Zoom Rooms, digital signage, security. What are your best practices that you would like to share on any of these products?
Oh, that's a really good one to end on. So best practices, as I would say, when you're working with Zoom or any unified communication platform, or considering moving or just looking at the industry today, as that overall paradigm shift has happened, and it takes large events to precipitate change like this. And Zoom has been able to move with that change very agilely, because that's how we were built. And so best practices would be your looking at the state today of what tools you have in your tool belt, and deciding whether or not you want to keep those tools in silos. That is, having different tools for different means, having a different chat platform and having a different video platform than that, and then having a different voice platform. Unified communications as a service, And unified communications in general has that key word unified for a reason. And that's because it makes it easy for the end user to do their job and to communicate. And so best practices would be to take an overall look at your environment today and see how going forward it would help you to make that more agile or more malleable, so that if this something like this happens in the future, which like we're aware of it now and we're ready, are you ready for something like that? Do you have the right tools in place? And so having a mobile solution, being able to be ready to keep your business going. And that goes back to one of your earlier questions about moving to the cloud. Best practices are to move to the cloud and have that one unified communications platform, so that you have complete control of it from one administrative interface, and your users have one platform to use, so that you'll never be disconnected. And for Zoom specifically, best practices would be to always check our website for security updates. We do have status.zoom.us, which will always give you the update, and you can subscribe in every way possible. You can have it tweet you, you can have it Instagram you, whatever, but you'll get the latest updates from Zoom about what we are sending out and what we've added to the platform. But right now it's about staying on top of the game and talking to your customers, your end users, about what they're experiencing, and if they're having any issues with curriculum, any issues with communicating to their students, which is the most important part. um, Taking a look at that and stepping back and saying, how can I make this perfect for them? How can I create the perfect environment in my that I would want? And then having the ability to have a platform like Zoom, you can literally create that from scratch if you want to. And then if you have a big Cisco platform or a VIA platform that you're moving over from, that's just a really great opportunity to simplify things and take a greenfield approach. So yeah, what I would just want to say is that teachers and administrators, all school, anybody who works in that industry and education, you're not alone. Everybody is feeling the same thing and going through the same thing right now. And what me and my team are dedicated to is working with education and making sure that the teaching doesn't stop and that that connection is still there. So we're always here to help you with that.
Well, I thank you for your time, Sean. As always, you're always a wealth of knowledge. I love picking your brain because I never know what I'm going to get, and I always learn something new. So I do appreciate it. I appreciate what you are doing specifically for Zoom. I appreciate what your education team is doing, because as a customer of Zoom, as an educator myself, these tools are very helpful. And I would say from our university's perspective, Zoom's kind of saved our life, right? It's kind of helped propel us into doing this. And I think the message that you just gave about making sure that if any type of catastrophe or anything in general happens in the future, that you're prepared, you have this unified communications platform to help that. So again, Sean, I appreciate your time, sir. I know you're a very busy man, and hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you, Jason. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Take